Over the years, advertising has been subject to various types of criticisms for ways in which it may contribute to social problems in society. One area of concern is advertising directed towards children and young people. Advertising to kids is a huge area. Advertisers devote a lot of resources to targeting children to try and get children to buy a range of different consumer products, toys, action figures, cereals, and fast food. Some critics worry that a lot of this advertising persuades children to engage in certain practices that are not really healthy for them. All right. For instance, a lot of advertising is for sugary cereals that have zero nutritional value and are loaded with sugar and other unhealthy chemicals. Related to this, some critics worry about advertising for fast food chains, that a fair amount of advertising from chains like McDonald's and Burger King is directed towards kids, right? With McDonald's Happy Meal, that a number of these fast food chains use cartoon characters, Ronald McDonald, and so forth. Critics worry that this advertising encourages children to want to eat more fast food, more Big Macs and burgers and fries, that again isn't really healthy for them. And some critics have pointed to some fairly shady practices by advertisers where ad agencies explicitly try to nurture what's called the nag factor, that ads encourage children to nag their parents to get them to buy particular products and services. And a lot of times parents just buckle under and buy things that Jimmy or Susie want them to buy. Now, some might respond that parents have an obligation to resist that nagging and that they should do their job as parents. But this does raise some question about whether or not advertisers are trying to drive a wedge between the parent and the child and make parenting that much more difficult. Now, there's also social concerns about advertising in schools. Advertisers have increasingly tried to reach young people and children through their educational systems. So we see companies advertising in textbooks, in displays in gymnasiums, in cafeterias with ads plastered on the walls. And your book talks about the Channel One TV news service, all right, where Channel One is the service that provides a free daily newscast that kids can watch in their classroom. Well, the newscast is stuffed full of product placement and ads for a variety of consumer products. So some critics argue that this kind of advertising is not really appropriate in schools, that school is a place for children and kids to learn, not to be inundated with advertising. Now, on the other hand, some advocates of this practice argue that advertisers provide a lot of needed revenue to school districts, that when a company like Apple or Coke sponsors a particular sporting event or advertises in a school, that company provides a certain amount of revenue or needed equipment to the school and the school district. And in an era of declining revenues and with school districts strapped for cash, districts and schools are finding that this advertising makes up for that shortfall. So, what do you think about that whole topic? Should public schools be open to advertising and commercial sponsorship, or should there be certain kinds of limits on that? Now, other areas of concern have to do with the impact that advertising has more generally on people's health. Here, some critics argue that advertising contributes to eating disorders and unhealthy eating habits more generally. And this effect is at two different ends of the spectrum. On the one hand, some critics argue that ads tend to feature very skinny, very thin female models, and that this helps contribute to a very unrealistic idea about female beauty, that it conveys the idea that to be beautiful and sexy, women should be constantly concerned about their looks, constantly dieting, constantly trying to lose weight. Well, some critics argue that this sends a very bad message to young girls, especially young female teens. It encourages them to be obsessed with their weight, to try and constantly go on diets, lose weight, and in extreme cases, some argue that this practice contributes to eating disorders, anorexia, right? So there's that concern. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there is the worry that advertising for junk food, for fast food, for candy bars, snacks and things like that, that contributes to obesity. That people learn from advertising to just eat all this crap that has no nutritional value and then just packs on the weight. So, does advertising contribute to some people being too thin, too anorexic, and other people being too obese? There's also worries about tobacco and alcohol, whether or not advertising for cigarettes and beer, hard liquor, whether or not that encourages people to engage in addictive habits. Does tobacco advertising hook people on smoking, even though tobacco advertising is subject to a number of restrictions? And does advertising for beer, wine, hard liquor, does that encourage people to drink more alcoholic beverages? Does it contribute to alcoholism? And then finally, there is a controversy about advertising for prescription drugs. There has been an exploding market for direct-to-consumer advertising. I mean, you've seen the ads, all of these kind of soft-focus, gauzy ads for various types of, prescription drugs like Levitra. And these ads encourage individual consumers to pester their doctors for prescription for these medications, for these drugs. Some consumer activists worry that this is a problem because individual consumers, individual people, are not really well educated about prescription drugs, and it may do them more harm than good to try and get their doctor to prescribe particular drugs that they may not need. Here the argument is that your physician, your doctor, is the person who is most knowledgeable about these drugs and their side effects, and he should be making these, he or she should be making these decisions about what medications you need. not the individual that is persuaded by some soft focus ad to take this or that prescription drug. So I guess more generally, I want to know what you think about all of these issues about advertising and areas of concern and criticism. What do you think is warranted here? What criticisms and concerns do you think need further attention or more government oversight? Or in what areas do you think advertisers should be free to do what they wish without any government regulation?